And we continue at 2:06 in the afternoon on the John Phillips Show. Mr. Randy Wang's in Culver City.
John, I have the teeny tiniest Shangy update for you.
Absolutely.
Shang's lawyer wants the trial moved out of Oakland because she doesn't think she'd get a fair jury.
It's so funny that that's the philosophy, because in theory, that's the town that elected her to the city council and then elected her as mayor. In theory, she would benefit from being tried in Oakland because they are familiar with her and they like her.
Well, they're also familiar with her work.
And we still got our Oakland A's, baby.
No, you don't.
That's the exact opposite philosophy that most politicians have. In fact, when Jim Traficant, who was the longtime congressman and before that the sheriff in Mahoning County, Ohio, which is where Youngstown is, and he was brought up on charges, he defended himself and he won in court. When they went after him a second time, they said, we're not letting your constituents determine your fate. We're going to try you someplace else. And that's when they convicted him. But I guess Shang's doing the opposite.
Good luck there, Shangy.
That's right. I like that. That was amazing.
800-222-5222 is the telephone number, 1-800-222-5222. It is our pleasure to welcome our next guest to the program. He is a columnist at the National Review. You can read him online at nationalreview.com, and you can follow him on X at John Fund. John Fund, welcome.
Thanks so much. Listen, as a native Californian, I wish I was back there to fight the great fight, which will now take place between now and November.
Well, what do you think is going to happen with that? Because there's this Politico poll that's out that shows that 2/3 of Californians don't want this. Newsom and company are saying, well, you asked the question the wrong way. If you asked the question a different way, you would find that the state loves what I'm doing. However, he's not going to have the space to himself, because Arnold Schwarzenegger has been very prolific on social media ever since Gavin Newsom said this is what he's going to do. And Schwarzenegger says that he's going to travel up and down the state and he's going to fight Gavin Newsom in all 58 counties. And Charlie Munger says he's going to give him $30 million or whatever it takes to do it. Kevin McCarthy came out and said he's going to raise $100 million. Newsom, according to Politico, is prepared to spend $100 million. What do you think we're going to end up with?
Look, a lot of people say, the Republican Party just blindly follows Donald Trump. It doesn't think independently, and sometimes that's true. But in California, Democrats are following Gavin Newsom over a cliff. Because remember, Gavin Newsom's goal here is not just to win this battle. It is to prove I'm the most anti-Trump candidate of all. I will go to any lengths to stop Trump, because he's aiming at the Democratic primary for president in 2028. So even if he loses this ballot initiative, he will proven he's a kamikaze pilot. He will do anything to stop Trump. So Newsom comes out ahead, one way or the other. The Democratic Party, though, could be viewed, and I think fairly so, as a completely anti-voter party. They don't want people to have an independent commission. They opposed it originally. They want to take away the powers of the independent commission, put it in cold storage for 6 or 7 years, and they want to create districts, which I believe, Salvador Dali or any abstract artist would be proud of. So now, it is true that the Attorney General of the state is probably going to write the ballot summary, and he will sugarcoat it in all ways possible. But after Arnold gets out there, and believe me, I already know how the Arnold commercial is going to start. He'll face the camera, he'll look at it, he'll point at it and say, "I told you I'd be back." And he will blast them. I was Jerry that day. Watch me. And you must have. So I think the Democrats, just like in the D.C. crime issue, have fallen into a trap. Trump derangement syndrome means they're not thinking strategically. They're thinking instinctively and emotionally. So I don't care how much money is spent. This thing smells like a dead fish, and the voters are going to figure it out. And Remember what Prop 16 was all about? It was getting rid of affirmative action bans in 2020, and everybody said it was going to pass. They had $50 million. The opponents had $3 million. And what happened? It lost by more than the original anti-quota legislation did in the 1990s when the state's demographics were way more Anglo. So I believe this is a potential disaster for the Democrats, but not so much for Gavin Newsom, who has a different agenda.
I got a text from a friend earlier today who said that privately Gavin Newsom is praying that a judge throws this thing out because he's in too deep to back down at this point. But the chances of his initiative failing are high enough to where he understands what kind of fire he's playing with. And a judge throwing it out, particularly if it's a Republican judge, would save him in a way that he needs to be saved right now.
Well, I'm not a lawyer. I only play one on TV. If the legislature passes this by the deadline and it puts it on the ballot, how would a judge throw it out? I mean, the legislature has the right to ask the voters to vote on something.
Well, the Constitution is clear that all of these districts have to have equal population.
We're presuming that the districts they come out with later today will have roughly equal population. What the ballot initiative in California in November would say is, do you want to change the Constitution, voters? And I don't see how a judge throws out the ability of the voters to make that decision.
Well, here is where they're I think, on thin ice. They're using data that's 5 years old. We did the census pre-COVID, snow globe being shaken. A lot of people moved out of California, and within California, a lot of people moved around the state. For example, the reason that he's not futzing with the Assembly or Senate lines is because within the state, a large part of the population moved from places like Los Angeles and the Bay Area to the Inland Empire, the Central Valley, Orange County. When they redraw those lines after the next census, Los Angeles is going to lose, San Francisco is going to lose, and you're going to see larger contingents of members from those inland parts of the state. He doesn't want to fool around with that right now because then he'd have to change the makeup of who represents California in the legislature.
But the only time we have lines that population numbers that we can actually use and count on is every 10 years. So I understand your point, but you can't make those changes until 2030 or beyond. And by then, Gavin Newsom will either be retired in a nursing home because he'll have been so beaten up politically, or he will be president of the United States.
What do you make of his social media activity? Because right now he is aggressively going after anyone who's questioning him, including fire victims who are complaining that they're not receiving the help that they were promised. He's attacking them. Spencer Pratt, the actor, attacking him in very personal terms on social media over that criticism. He's going after members of the legislature personally. He's going after journalists, randos. He thinks that he's doing Trump's act. The difference is with Trump, when Trump goes after journalists or Trump goes after people on social media who are regarded as being sympathetic, that is consistent with his character. That's consistent with the guy that we've known for decades as a developer, as a television host, as a fill-in-the-blank. With Newsom, it was just, 2 months ago where he was trying to bill himself as the Democrat who can talk to Red America, and he had Charlie Kirk on the podcast and Michael Savage and Steve Bannon and others, and then he got a negative reaction to that. So he did a complete 180, and now he's the biggest Republican hater on planet Earth, and he's willing to go scorched earth on social media every single day.
Well, there are two kinds of people in politics. There's dumb opportunists and smart opportunists. I used to think Gavin Newsom was a smart opportunist. I've changed my mind. I think the man has so little character, so little consistent principle, so little internal understanding of what he actually believes that he will turn on a dime and say and do anything. Now, Donald Trump has some of those qualities, but in general, at least Trump is heading in the same direction. I know my brand, as you said, John, and I'm going to follow it. Gavin Newsom, I know him personally, and I can tell you, I don't know who the real Gavin Newsom is because he was a hell of a nice guy, very moderate when I knew him in California. And now, I mean, you wake up in the morning and you wonder what you're going to get.
Well, I've been covering this guy for years and years and years, and sometimes I'll get booked on some shows and they want to know, well, what would Gavin Newsom as president be like? And I give them the same answer that you just gave. I honestly have no clue because he changes his profile. He changes his attitude, his demeanor, the language that he uses, depending on what the circumstances are at any given moment. He could be a very left-wing Democratic candidate. He could then be a blue dog Democrat. I don't know. It's just going to be whatever he thinks will benefit him the most at any given time.
The only problem with that from a political standpoint is this. Clinton was a lot like that, but he was really good at it. Gavin Newsom, you always think you're looking at an actor playing a governor. Ronald Reagan was an actor who was a governor, and he literally slipped into the role very smoothly. Arnold Schwarzenegger, for all of his mistakes, acted like a governor. Gavin Newsom acts like he's just trying too hard. He would never win an Academy Award for sincerity.
Who do you think poses the biggest threat to Gavin Newsom in a Democratic primary? And I say that with the belief that I think it's AOC, because Gavin Newsom is vulnerable in the fact that he is disingenuous and a flake. And she's going to say, I am for defunding Israel. Where are you? I am for transgender athletes in girls' sports. Where are you? I am not for locking people up from stealing from Walmart because Walmart is the real criminal. Where are you? And she has the ability, as someone who is authentically liberal, authentically left-wing, authentically socialist, however you want to describe it, to pin him down in ways that he hasn't been pinned down in California politics.
You know, I'm of two minds on whether or not she runs. If Madani wins in New York City mayor's race, she may be literally propelled into running for president. But she has another option. She can always run for Chuck Schumer's Senate seat, which is a safer bet and gives her more of a platform to build some gravitas. She'd be only 35 years old if she ran for president. Now, I know that Mondani's going to win if he wins at 33, but that's really stretching it if you're running for president. I think that the biggest challenge that Newsom has if AOC doesn't run is from a liberal Democrat who's being touted as the next Bill Clinton, Andy Beshear of Kentucky. He is going around the country saying, I won in Kentucky, which is a deep red state. I won twice. I can talk half Southern. I can talk moderate. And, you know, the moderate wing of the Democratic Party isn't dead. They just have to be convincing enough to the left saying the only way you're going to win, and this is if Trump is successful, is if you play a Bill Clinton and be left but talk moderate. Now, if Trump has failures and bumps on the road, you know, the left may say we can run anyone and he'll win to succeed Trump. I'm not sure of that. I think that AOC, in the end, will not run because at 35, she's got 30 years she can wait.
I talked to a friend who works in Democratic Party politics this week, and he said right now there's an interesting dynamic going on in the polling that he has seen within the Democratic Party. And that is that when it comes down to personnel and policy, they are not on the same page, where you have a significant chunk that want to defund Israel and a significant chunk that want to defend Israel. You have people who want transgender athletes in girls' sports. You have people who don't want them. You have people who wanted to dump Grampy Joe. You had people who wanted to keep him. Some want to dump Chuck Schumer. Some want to keep him on as the leader in the Senate. There's very little agreement going on right now when it comes to big decisions. The one thing that moderate Democrats and left-wing Democrats are on the same page on right now is that they all hate Donald Trump, and that the way to become a popular figure within the Democratic Party is to prove that you hate Donald Trump more than everyone else.
Yeah, and that's what Newsom's doing. Newsom has decided, as a California governor, I can get lots of media coverage, and I will blot out anyone else's attempts to appear anti-Trump because I'm going to be the most anti-Trump of all. I'm the guy who literally called him the most names and puts this on the ballot to try to stop him from keeping control of the House of Representatives.
In California, we are a one-party state. The Democrats control all of the statewide constitutional offices, both Senate seats, the vast majority of the seats in the House of Representatives, supermajorities in both houses of the state legislature. However, Democrats are not a majority in terms of registration. They're in the 40s. Republicans are below 30. The reason Democrats win elections here is because a huge chunk of the independent voters or the minor party voters end up pulling the lever for Democratic candidates. They're left of center. Sometimes they're very left wing. Whatever the case may be, they vote for Democrats, but for whatever reason, they don't feel comfortable self-identifying as a Democrat. The ask that Newsom is making to that population of people is, in order to save democracy, we have to rig elections. And in terms of constituent services, instead of having someone in your community represent you, you're going to have someone potentially from far away represent you, which means you're going to be giving up constituent services and good government and everything else that you have right now from whoever your member of Congress is. And I want you to do all that in the name of partisan loyalty. What do you think those left-leaning independents, how do they react to that pitch when he asked them to sacrifice in the name of the Democratic Party, which is a party they don't even belong to?
The same way that people reacted to Prop 16, which would have gotten rid of the anti-quota laws in California. They will go against it, even though they may have told pollsters something different, which is why you can't always depend on the polls. John, I think your analysis is exactly right, and I'll tell you where it would lead. If Newsom puts this on the ballot, I think it loses. If it loses, he may be benefited in the Democratic primaries in other states running for president, but the Democratic Party will have a black eye and then be embarrassed. This is a perfect opportunity for someone like Rick Caruso, who's a conservative Democrat who almost won mayor's race in Los Angeles, to come in and say, I'm the only Democrat in this race who said I wasn't sure or I opposed this initiative. If you want good government and you want independence and you don't want to be a strict party loyalist and you want to actually fix California, I'm your guy. I think that this is probably the best thing that could ever happen to Rick Caruso because it gives him a distinctive brand within the Democratic Party that the left-wing independents and the moderate Democrats, and they still are some, can rally around.
Last question before you go. As Arnold Schwarzenegger campaigns against this up and down the state, at this point in his life, at this point in his career, who is his audience? Who is he speaking to?
Well, remember, Schwarzenegger won his re-election race in 2006 with 58% of the vote. That included a lot of those independents that you mentioned. There are a lot of people who are old enough to have gone to his movies or even today seen his TV shows, and he's somebody who is viewed as not a blind partisan. He's obviously against Trump. So I think there is a big chunk of the people in the middle and also some young people who still have fond memories of him as an action hero who would say, you know, if Arnold is against this, he's not doing it for partisan reasons. He must be doing it for other reasons. And I'll listen to him.
John Funn, columnist at the National Review. You can read him online at nationalreview.com and follow him on X at John Funn. John, thanks so much for stopping by on this Friday. Have yourself a great weekend.
You too. Thanks so much.
And right now it's time to open up the California Crime Blotter.
If the cashier is dummy.
Questions?
And Randy, this edition takes us to yet another street takeover.
They happen every single weekend in Southern California. They happen every single weekend in Northern California. Well, this past weekend, there was a ride-along with Channel 4 to see exactly what happens when the police try to intervene with a street takeover. Here's NBC4. Oh, let me turn off that. Here is NBC4.
Story at 11, a crackdown on street takeovers. That is the mission of a multi-agency operation tonight in South Los Angeles.
It is an ongoing issue in L.A. County that in some cases is leading to more serious crimes, including vandalism and theft.
More sometimes. That happens every times.
Do we ever do one of these stories where some shop isn't looted?
Just last week at 11, we brought you these new numbers from police. There have been 17 separate takeovers that led to nearby store burglaries since June 28th. And now,
that's not that long ago.
No.
Wait, I thought crime was down. It's not?
Yeah, back on planet Earth, We could do 3 hours of The Blotter every single day if we wanted to.
And now we're getting an exclusive look at an operation intending to bring down those numbers.
NBC4's Camilla Rambaldi joining us live with a look inside. Camilla.
Yeah, hi, Jonathan and Kathy. That operation tonight involving the LASD, the LAPD, and the CHP. These street takeovers, the LAPD says the LASD rather says it's a problem that continues to happen and that it's happening nearly every weekend. And tonight we followed along with the LASD to give you a closer look.
It's happening every weekend, then what we're doing isn't working. And I know Nathan Hochman made a big press conference talking about increasing the fines. I don't know if that's going to do it.
Well, here's the surprising part. Whenever they interview someone in the neighborhood about one of these takeovers, they all say the same thing, which is they advertised it on social media. We knew it was coming. And yeah, it came exactly at the same time it was advertised for. If everyone in the neighborhood is aware of it, how do the cops not know?
Oh, you're going to find out, actually. Stay tuned.
It's a dangerous trend across LA County. Tonight, a multi-agency operation in South Los Angeles involving the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department, the LAPD, and CHP cracking down on street takeovers.
Street takeovers, they cause not only destruction to property, but also loss of life. They're very dangerous. They impede traffic.
We follow.
And we allow them.
And we get more of them because they know we allow it.
You know, I know Holly Mitchell put together a task force to deal with it since most of these are happening in her district. But Holly Mitchell's task force decided the best way to combat street takeovers is to have Barbara Ferrer do seminars at high schools.
Yeah. Because if anyone talks to the kids, it's Barbara Ferrer.
Traffic.
We followed along with LASD tonight. Crews were out here monitoring the area. News Chopper 4 also overhead showing law enforcement making several traffic stops to combat illegal street takeovers. At this one stop, video NBC4 captured showing some people in cars being questioned by law enforcement.
We try to apprehend the offender.
You planning on doing any donuts tonight, sir?
The only donuts we allow here are at Winchell's.
We try to apprehend the offenders, right, the violators. We try to also catch them in the act, whether a takeover starts. If we catch them, we're going to take your car as far as impound the vehicle. You can also be cited and arrested for being part of the takeover itself.
Yeah, but how often does that actually happen?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Do you remember the story, what was it, 2 weeks ago, where there was the big street takeover that led to the looting of the AutoZone, and when the cops finally showed up, guns drawn, there was nobody left in the AutoZone.
Nope. All empty.
According to data from the LASD shared with NBC4, there have been about 40 reported takeovers from April to June in the areas they cover.
I think that's very surprising. I mean, it's almost every weekend that we're having street takeovers.
Why do you think that is?
I just think it's probably a growing trend among some people. Social media is a big influence. You see these takeovers, they seem fun. Using water guns, throwing water balloons, using fireworks, using destructive devices just to have a little bit of fun. But in reality, it's not fun. It's very dangerous.
They're just having fun.
Well, and then also there's a second component, which is the looting of a store.
It's lawlessness.
And its damage going beyond the streets. According to police, since June 28, there have been 17 separate street takeovers that have led to burglaries at nearby stores, leaving behind thousands of dollars worth of damage.
But those are just kids having fun, letting off a little steam.
Well, thanks to those kids, none of us can buy insurance anymore.
Leaving behind thousands of dollars worth of damage.
And one problem we're also having...
I'm telling you, part of the reason that the crackdown is more theater than actually cracking down on this is because the majority of the people participating are teenagers, and the last thing LA County wants to do is fill up the juvenile halls because then there will be more lawsuits.
And everyone knows it.
And one problem we're also having, too, is a lot of the looters. They utilize these street takeovers to vandalize businesses, as we see with the flash mobs. And that's one of our concerns as well.
Concerns they say they will continue to combat. And the LASD says if you are caught in a street takeover, to report it to law enforcement and to not be a spectator. They say that many times these street takeovers are not reported, and then by the time law enforcement arrives, the damage has already been done.
See, this is the thing. This is what at least the sheriff's department is saying in the ride-along, is that while the neighbors might complain about it, none of them are calling the cops about it until it's too late.
Well, do you really have to? If you're the cops, how are you not aware if an intersection is suddenly shut down and traffic can't get through and there's hundreds of people doing donuts that's extremely loud late at night?
They wait for a call.
Well, that leads me to believe that they don't have any interest in showing up either.
They say that many times these street takeovers are not reported, and then by the time law enforcement arrives, the damage has already been done. We're live tonight in South Los Angeles. Camila Rambaldi, NBC 4 News.
I mean, that's the thing. Whether they're called about it or they find out about it through a camera system, by the time they get there, they scatter, and there's not a lot of effort in chasing them down because we can't fill up the juvenile halls. Then the county gets sued for another $4 billion.
Here's what I think is going on. If you're the cops and you know this is going on, you're aware of it, you're probably better off just to let it run its course and then show up and do the paperwork. Because if you show up and you start to shut it down and you get involved in wrestling matches with teenagers and they get hurt, they're going to sue the city. The council and the mayor is not going to have your back. They're going to blame the cops. Your career is going to be over. Your home is going to be taken from you. Your reputation is going to be ruined. You may end up going to jail because we know that the powers that be think that the cops are the real criminal. So it's just easier to let it happen and then to pretend like, oh, we just found out about it right now.
I think that's definitely what's happening.
If you'd like to email the show, you can do so at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. And Randy, we have time to reopen the California Crime Blotter.
One more time.
If the cashier is dummy.
Questions?
And this edition takes us to the Concord Mall,
where there was a mall burglary that got all out of control. Here is a report from NBC in the Bay Area.
Employees of the Sun Valley Mall in Concord are calling for more security after a smash and grab ended with an employee getting pepper sprayed.
It is not the first time.
How dare they?
Can you imagine? You clock in at work. You think, okay, I got to put in one more shift this week. Then I get to enjoy the weekend. Maybe I'll go to a movie. Maybe I'll take in a baseball game. Maybe I'll go out to a nice dinner. And no, you end up getting pepper sprayed at work.
Getting pepper sprayed.
It is not the first time the mall has been a target either. We want to bring in NBC Bay Area's Valina Jones with what's going on.
That smash and grab robbery rattled customers and mall employees, with businesses quickly closing their gates to prevent the suspects from targeting any other stores. And tonight, the kiosk that was targeted is still closed for business.
It wasn't even a shop. It was one of those kiosks.
Where they do the back rubs?
Who's doing that? Who goes to a mall, sees someone with a chair and a towel and says, yes, touch my shoulders?
I'm surprised the malls allow that to happen, because you're there doing your Christmas shopping or whatever, and you're walking down the aisle at the mall, and you hear some, I don't know, 75-year-old man moaning in ecstasy as someone's massaging his scalp. Is that something that requires an audience?
The other place where you see these establishments and nobody's going there, who wants to get the neck massage at LAX?
Not me.
What do you think the alcohol's for?
It all happened in a matter of seconds. Video posted on the website claycord.com shows 3 masked suspects dressed in black using what appears to be sledgehammers to smash display cases at the Jewelry Time kiosk inside the Sun Valley Mall.
Okay, a kiosk inside a mall isn't going to have the fanciest jewelry. You need sledgehammers for that?
Sounds very dramatic.
I was panicking. I was shocked. I wasn't shocked when it was happening, and my coworker, she was just like telling me, like, oh, go grab your key, like, go close the gate.
The smash and grab happened around.
This is pretty violent for Concord.
Yeah, and usually those kiosks only have one employee. So there's some poor employee who's there by themselves, and a group of people come up with sledgehammers. They destroy everything at the kiosk, and they pepper spray them.
The smash and grab happened around 2 p.m. Wednesday. Witnesses say one of the suspects also pepper sprayed a man working at the kiosk before they got away with an unknown amount of jewelry. Ivan Jang works nearby and says his store hired their own security after a string of thefts.
So wait, so you rent space at the mall, and I'm sure part of your rent goes to pay for the security officers who are there at the mall. Usually they have their own location, where they have the guys in the round hats that are there to keep you safe. And then you have to go out on top of that and pay to have your own security guard at your own store at the mall.
Gee, I wonder why malls keep going out of business in California.
And it happened to us too. You know, we've had a lot of our hoodies and items on shelves, and people came in and cut our stuff and took everything. So it's just hard.
The three thieves ran out of the mall, jumping into a waiting getaway car, and then almost hit private store security guard Lisa O'Coin.
They almost ran over the mall cop.
Oh, God.
Flipped me out with both fingers, which are my index fingers, and I was like, okay, bye. And then didn't know that they just committed a crime.
You didn't try to stop them after they almost ran you over?
She sounds like she's right on top of that.
I think I know why the hoodie guy needed his own security.
And then almost on the side, people, God's going to get you. And I hope you get punished good.
You know, in California, you probably have a better chance of a good old-fashioned smiting than these jackasses serving any prison time.
Well, if the government's not going to do anything about it, maybe the Almighty will.
And I was like, okay, bye. And then didn't know that they just committed a crime. And then almost on the side, people, God's going to get you. And I hope you get punished good.
I hope you get punished good.
This isn't the first time this mall has been hit by smash and grab groups. Last November, a group of masked suspects stole bags of jewelry from the Villiana Jewelers inside the same mall.
We're getting dangerously close to the day where jewelry just won't be a thing in California anymore.
No, none of them can buy insurance as it is. And if they run out of inventory, we're going to all have to go to Arizona to buy rings.
O'Coin believes more security is needed.
It just gives me the chills, you know, and it's like, it's going to get worse because if they don't start, get different, more security, especially at jewelry stores.
Concord police are investigating. Sun Valley Mall declined to comment on the incident. In Concord, Felina Jones, NBC Bay Area News.
Okay, thank you very much, Felina.
There you go. There's what happened at the Concord Mall. Yet another smash and grab. The kiosk operator got pepper sprayed. The mall cop almost got ran over, but she thinks God's going to get him.
So all the Rite Aids are now gone, or at least most of them. We know that the jewelry shops cannot buy insurance. So if they get hit and their inventory is taken, they're done too. Anyone with an ATM in their establishment is at risk of having a stolen Kia come through the wall, and that ATM stolen. What are we going to be left with? Is all of the commerce going to go to Jeff Bezos?
Well, that's the interesting thing, right? Jeff Bezos, he profits when people are afraid to go retail shopping. And not only that, but people can steal from retail establishments and sell those stolen goods for years and years and years before getting caught on Amazon.
The only thing that Bezos has to worry about is if the mail gets stolen or packages that are left at people's homes get stolen. That's it. He doesn't have stores to protect. He only has warehouses. And I guess he's got delivery drivers, and I assume they get robbed all the time, too.
But Amazon's such a behemoth, they don't even care if you return something. Just say you want to return it, they'll be like, we'll just give you the money. We don't want it.
Yeah, I have noticed that. They just don't even care. They used to have you bring it back and drop it off at some center, and then they do with it whatever it is that they do. Send it to that woman's home in San Jose, I guess.
That poor lady.
But now they just say, oh, yeah, keep it. We don't care.